in my own work with leaders, I encourage them to look for routines in four different domains: physical, mental, relational, and spiritual domains, that if they practice them consistently, would help them show up in their version of peak performance, you at your best, whatever that looks like for you. And those routines support them in living and leading that way. And self-reflection actually is one of the spiritual routines that I recommend the most to people, because as you kind of said at the outset, you could call it prayer, you could call it self-reflection. It's sort of a tradition neutral approach, right? And if you're coming from a faith-based tradition, terrific. You've got your own. If you're not, that's okay too. But there's power in self-reflection. I'd love to hear about your own practice. I mean, you mentioned prayer, and as comfortable as you are talking about, if to the degree that you're comfortable with it, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what is your routine of self-reflection, the frequency, how much time do you try to dedicate to that each day, each week, just any of the details that you think might be helpful to folks listening.
Yeah, and Scott, you give me a lot of things to think about. And I'll break it into two pieces related to the prayer, the self-reflection. I will spend 15 to 20 minutes every night. I'm not a morning guy, but every night before I go to bed, going through what I call the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, which basically goes as follows: what did I say I was going to do today? What did I do? What am I proud of? What am I not proud of? How did I lead people? How did I follow people? If I lived today over again, what would I have done differently? And then the last one, Scott, is if I have tomorrow, and I'm very well aware of the fact sooner or later we won't, but if I do have tomorrow and a learning person, based on what I learned today, how will I operate differently tomorrow on whatever dimension of your life matters? In my case, as a father, as a spouse, as a Christian, as a leader, as a teacher. And I do that 15, 20 minutes every day. And of course, the students will say to me, do you do this every day? I do it every day. I mean, and 15, 20 minutes is great, because if I said I do it for an hour, I could easily convince myself I don't. Hard to imagine I don't have 15, 20 minutes. And then the student will say, well, do you have to write it down? I don't think you have to. I do, because if I don't write it down, am I self-reflector? Am I daydreaming, particularly if I've had a couple of glasses of wine? It could get a little murky, right? Then they'll say, well, geez, wait a minute. If you're taking notes, a paragraph or so, when do you have a chance to read? And I say, well, every year, the first weekend in December, I have 3 days, on this silent retreat with nobody to talk to other than a prayer book, and then I review it. So the self-reflection piece becomes very important. Now, you talk about how you think about your life outside of the spiritual side. As you well know, Scott, as a pretty well-known coach, at the end of the day, we're not in a sprint. This is a marathon. And if you believe it's a marathon, you got to pace yourself. And the expression that I tease everybody, and I'll tease you now, Scott, I always ask everybody, have you heard of this famous expression that seems to be worldwide? I heard it last week in India, 3 weeks before in China, this expression called work-life balance. I assume you've heard of this expression, Scott? Okay.
Yeah, I hate it, actually.
So I hate it to the extent, Scott, if you look at my hands here, I look and say, all right, work-life balance. I mean, it looks and sounds like you're either working or you're living, okay? So when I wrote the third book, which is called You're 168, and by the way, Scott, I always interview people. Only 1 out of 20 people know why 168 is the world's most important number. I'm going to guess you may not.
I think I do.
You do?
I think I do. 24 times 7 equals 168.
Scott, you're one of the few people who knew that, and I didn't tip you off. I did not tip you off.
We have never met.
Never
Nothing
met.
up my sleeve. Yeah.
So once you say that, then I say, Scott, it's all about life balance. And what I did in that book, which was a tremendous learning for me, Scott, I literally interviewed hundreds of people, and I simply asked them the question, how do you think about life balance? And some people said, well, I've got 3 things I'm trying to focus, or 10. It turns out, math major, there's an amazing normal distribution related to 6. In no particular order, Scott, you have your career, your family, your faith, your health, a little bit of fun, and what I call being a best citizen, making a difference in the world. And so from my perspective, I'm always trying to get people to think about that. So from my perspective, I make sure, Scott, I'll exercise for at least an hour, 5 days a week. I will make sure that I spend, in my case, a lot of time with my 5 children as they're growing up, to the point where I had to coach one team for each of the 5 children, even no matter what job I was in. I would always make sure I had 2 or 3 other guys that we could trade off.
Yeah, sure.
Because at the end of the day, when there's 15 first grade girls at the field, one of the 5 of us
Somebody's got
needs
to
be
show
there,
up. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that ability to keep that balance and realize it's a marathon was something that was and is very important to me, to the point now where, now my children are older. They're all over the world. I talk to all 5 of them every single day. And and Julie had said right after we got married, why is it that 50% of relationships don't stay together? I thought, wait a minute, we just got married. Why are we having this discussion? And she said, well, because people sort of drift apart. They don't spend time. And she said, I got a great idea. Why don't we make sure we spend one night a week, no matter what, just the 2 of us?
Date night.
We've done date night now, I think, for 43 years. I don't think we've missed a night in 43 years.
Those are fabulous, because that's really where I wanted to go next. There's so many things you're saying. I just want to get your thought on this, actually. Again, for the listener, we talked a minute ago about behavioral practices. You're St. Ignatius of Loyola. It was 4 questions, right? We're definitely going to get those in the show notes. That's a self-observation exercise, right? I mean, really, the way that you use that process is to observe yourself nightly for 15 to 20 minutes. And if I heard, and that's another thing we teach at Georgetown, is self-observation exercises followed by behavioral practices, which, again, what do I need to do differently tomorrow, I think, is the last of your questions, right? It leads immediately to behaviors that then have impact on outcomes, right? Whether it's at work or in the family or the home, whatever it might be.